Hi everyone, and welcome to week 13. This week we're going to be talking about substance abuse, which correlates with chapter 13. The objectives for this week include defining terms related to drugs, the impact of tobacco on women, discuss factors on why women use drugs, explain the link between mental illness and drug use, and identify barriers to treatment specific to women. This week's assignments include creating a drug treatment facility for women assignments, completing a problem with drug blog, your chapter 13 quiz, and of course your discussion board. The drug treatment facility for women is an assignment where I want you to identify barriers to drug treatment facilities specific to women, and then describe how to remove these barriers for women seeking a residential treatment program. So essentially, you're going to be creating a facility that is geared towards women. And some of the resources you can use for this assignment is chapter 13, but specifically pages 296 to, I'm sure it's 299, that is probably a typo. So consider that women are generally less likely to seek out treatment centers than men, and additionally respond to treatment very differently compared to men. Women face additional barriers when looking for residential drug treatment programs. So for this assignment, you are going to design a drug treatment center specifically geared towards women, and then create a brochure, a newsletter, or a one-page ad promoting your residential drug treatment program for women. Regardless of how you choose to present your information, your product should contain the barriers that women face when looking for a treatment center and how your center removes or reduces these barriers. Identify how your treatment center is geared towards women. Discuss how women respond to treatment differently and how your center will address that difference, and how your treatment center will address all the components of treatment. In addition, just make sure that your product is free of grammar and spelling errors, is organized and easy to read, and uses images or visual, so it's visually appealing. The second assignment I'll discuss is the problems with drug blog. So essentially, this is just a blog to identify your own thoughts on drug use and abuse. To complete the assignment, you'll use chapter 13 and also this week's PowerPoint to complete it. And I want you to answer the following question. Is it a sign of personal weakness or strength for a woman to admit she has a problem with alcohol or drugs? And then explain why you felt whether it's a weakness or a strength. Moving on to the content. So substance abuse, what is it? Why is it important? Substance abuse is the overuse, misuse, or addiction to any chemical substance. And there are many forms of substance abuse, including the single greatest preventable cause of death in the United States. So some key terms you should become familiar with for this chapter are drugs, which is any chemical other than food that is purposely taken to affect body processes. Recreational drugs are drugs taken purely for fun. This includes legal drugs and illegal drugs. Drug misuse is using a drug for a purpose other than what it was originally intended for. Drug abuse is excess drug use that is inconsistent with accepted medical practice. Psychological dependence is also known as a habit. So psychologically or mentally, you continue to take this drug. And then tolerance is the body's ability to withstand the effect of a drug. And tolerance means that your body has adjusted to the presence of a drug. Generally, it means that you have to use more and more of a drug to get similar effects. When we look at drugs in the law, the lines between drugs that are legal and illegal can change throughout time. Think about prohibition when alcohol was made illegal. Initially, LSD and heroin were developed for medical use. And marijuana is becoming more and more legal. So ignore this in 4 states because more states have just voted to make recreational marijuana legal. But please remember it's still illegal at the federal level, and federal level trumps local laws. So if the federal government decided to come in and start arresting shops that are selling marijuana, they could do so, even though the state says it's okay. And then many legal drugs can still be harmful, and they're really easy to abuse. So think about alcohol, tobacco, and even prescription drugs such as opioids. There are a variety of different effects that can occur from drug use, which include physiological changes, so the changes that occur to your body, mental dependence, conflict in interpersonal relationships, drug-related crime, creation of treatment facilities, loss of individual productivity, whether it be at work or in society. How are the children of drug-dependent parents being cared for? Policing of illicit or illegal drug availability, and then treatment of medical complications from drug use and abuse. Some of the sociocultural dimensions. So these are factors that increase the likelihood of a person engaging in drug use and abuse. So having very significant life stressors, being sexually or physically abused, having low self-esteem, self-depreciation, anxiety, and conflict, and coming from a lower socioeconomic status. When we think about the legal dimensions of substance abuse, illicit drug, meaning illicit drug use, meaning illegal drug use, disproportionately affects people of color. An example, Hispanics and African American drug offenders have a greater chance of being sentenced to prison compared to white offenders. African Americans also receive longer prison sentences than do white offenders. And then compared to 40 years ago, nearly 10 times more women are currently incarcerated or in prison due to drug use. And there are new laws of drug use during pregnancy that really focus on punishing the woman who is pregnant and using drugs rather than offering treatment. We think about the economic dimensions of illicit or illegal drug use. It causes about 50,000 deaths per year, and it's estimated to cost $200 billion per year in the US. And this includes direct and indirect effects. So direct could be the cost of hospitalization when there's a drug overdose or when something goes wrong, whereas indirect could be the loss of work productivity due to drug use. The government currently spends $26 billion to prevent drug use, offer treatment services, fight drug trafficking, and improve drug enforcement and development in other countries. When we look at the economic dimensions for legal drugs, tobacco use causes about $200 billion in economic damages each year. And again, this is direct and indirect, and almost 500,000 deaths per year. It's 9 times the death from illicit drugs. So this legal drug is essentially more people die from this drug than illegal drugs. Pack-a-day smokers, or smokers who smoke a pack a day, spend more than 1,000 on cigarettes per year. And the economic impact of alcohol abuse, it is thought to cost $225 billion per year. And again, mostly this is on lost productivity. When we look at who is smoking, most smokers begin their habits during high school, often before it's legal to do so. You can see from this chart the percentage of smokers that are women. You can see what the education are of smokers. So generally, the less education a person has, the more likely they are to smoke. Where they live in the US, what region, Northeast, Midwest, South, or West. Sexual orientation, and poverty status. So from poverty status, you can see that those that are below the poverty level have a much greater chance of smoking. As I just said, most smokers begin their habits during high school. You can see here the percentage of female high school students who smoke by race and ethnicity from 1991 to 2013. So the good news here is that the graph is going down, right? So at 1997, as you can see, white females, almost 40% of them were smoking. And by 2013, we have 20%. So you do see the numbers going down. In addition, you see the numbers going down for Hispanic and Black high school students. When you think about the legal dimensions of tobacco use, so there are examples of legal legislation that are in place. So one is the taxing. Tobacco is taxed at much higher rates compared to other products and goods. There are bans on youth marketing, and when companies are caught marketing to youth, there are some strict penalties. There's no longer tobacco product vending machine sales. When I was in high school, there were vending machines that contained packs of cigarettes, and you can just go in and get your pack of cigarettes from a vending machine. And there are strict limitations on advertising and promotion. When we think about the health consequences to smoking, so the physiological effects of cigarette smoking, you can see here from the chart that it essentially impacts almost every area of your body. But cigarette smoking during pregnancy also has serious consequences for the growing fetus. When we look at U.S. deaths for males and females that can be attributed to cigarette smoking, here are the numbers. So the number one cause is lung cancer, then heart disease, and COPD, which is chronic pulmonary disease, and other respiratory diseases. And then as you go down the list, you can see some other causes there. I just want to note that, as you can see, lung cancer is on there twice, but the second one that causes 2959 deaths per year, that is death from secondhand smoke, meaning the person was not the smoker, but probably lived with a smoker in the house who was smoking in the house. So quitting tobacco obviously is often the best decision a woman can make for her health, but it's not easy. But it can be done, and often it does take more than one attempt. And there are many options available, such as nicotine replacement therapy, medication, support groups, and therapy in general. When we think about alcohol, so alcohol is a colorless liquid obtained by fermentation of a sugar-containing liquid. Moderate drinking is considered 1 drink per day for women, and that may slightly reduce the risk for heart disease, whereas heavier drinking, especially binge drinking, can have serious harmful effects on the health. The chart on the right is showing the BAC level, which is your blood alcohol level, and then the effects it has on a person. For Illinois and most states, the BAC, you have to be at 0.079 and under to be legal or considered sober enough to operate a vehicle. At 0.8, you are considered too impaired to drive. We look at some of the epidemiological trends and issues. 47% of females aged 12 and older report current use of alcohol. 57% of women aged 18 to 25 report current alcohol use. When we look at underage drinking, 24% of females, teenagers, drank within the past month. 14% engaged in recent binge drinking, and 4% had many recent binge drinking episodes. We look at where people are more likely to use alcohol. Although these numbers are very close, it's still higher in the Northeast, followed by the Midwest, then the West, and then the South. Some of the physical complications from chronic alcohol consumption include cancer, cardiovascular effects, organ damage, diabetes, fetal alcohol syndrome, which occurs from drinking alcohol while pregnant, infancy and infertility, diminished immunity, and having sleep disturbances. Alcoholism is also called as alcohol use disorder, and here are some warning signs for it. So having 5 or more drinks per day, needing a drink to start off the day, denying having an alcohol problem when there are signs and symptoms that show there is a problem with alcohol, changing brands to control drinking, depression and paranoia, failure to recall what happened while drinking, having dramatic mood swings, and doing things while drinking and regretting them afterward. We look at the differences between alcoholism and problem drinking. Drinking problem is regularly drinking at unhealthy levels, but you still and exhibiting unhealthy alcohol-related behaviors, but there is still a sense of control with alcohol. It's not hurting your job, your relationship with your family, and so forth. Whereas alcoholism is the physical and psychological addiction to alcohol. You cannot control drinking or behavior, and it is impacting other areas in your life. When we look at the gender differences between alcohol, men metabolize alcohol faster than women. A person's size influences the effects of a given amount of alcohol. Hormones also affect alcohol metabolism. Generally, women take longer to metabolize alcohol, and that is why they get affected by alcohol use at smaller amounts compared to men. And obviously, alcohol consumption can affect pregnancy. When we look at some of the illicit drugs out there, and again, illicit means illegal drugs, there are different classifications. So we have stimulants, depressants, anti-anxiety drugs, cannabis, psychedelics and hallucinogens, narcotics, and designer drugs. Oops, sorry, let me go back really quick. When we look at the epidemiological trends and issues regarding illegal drugs, you can see here the chart of emergency department visits due to alcohol use or misuse in 2009. The number one cause of emergency visits are pharmaceuticals alone, with the next one being illicit drugs alone. And then you have some combinations. We look at who uses illicit drugs. About 45% of Americans over the age of 12 have tried an illicit drugs. 9.4% of adults tried an illicit drug in the past month. When we look at generational trends, illicit drug use is up over the past generation. And it's believed that this is driven by growing acceptance of marijuana, which I realize is considered legal in the state of Illinois. However, federally, it's still considered an illegal drug. Some of the physiological effects of drugs for stimulants, it includes increasing your heart rate, blood pressure, the strength of your heart contractions, blood glucose level, and muscle tension. For depressants, it relaxes the CNS, which is your central nervous system, and decreases function. Cannabis causes alterations in perception and reactions, may also increase heart rate. And psychedelics and hallucinogens alter perception, thoughts, reality, mood, sensation, also your heart rate, body temperature, and may cause a possible acute panic attack. Narcotics slow respiration, your breathing rate, lowers pain levels. There's a high potential for abuse over time. Heart infections, skin abscesses, and lung congestion. For inhalants, these slow bodily functions over time. You also have liver failure, kidney failure, respiratory failure, destruction of bone marrow and skeletal muscles. And designer drugs, chronic use may cause brain damage, significant impairment in visual and verbal memory. Of the three most commonly abused drugs of prescription drugs, those include opioids. These are generally prescribed for pain. Includes morphine, codeine, oxycodone, and then some of the brand names are OxyContin, Percocet, and Percodan. Depressants are usually prescribed for anxiety and sleep disorders, such as benzodiazepines and barbiturates. And common brand names are Valium, Librium, and Xanax. And stimulants are sometimes given for sleep disorders and attention deficit disorder. And brand names are Dexedrine and Ritalin. Each year, though, more than 6 million Americans reported using prescription drugs for non-medical purposes. So we look at drug dependency. Some of the treatment dimensions are first detoxification. This is supervised withdrawal with or without medication. Therapeutic communities are highly structured drug-free environments. Outpatient drug-free programs could be self-help programs. And we look at gender differences in treatment programs. Only about 60% of U.S. Substance abuse treatment facilities provide special programs or services for women. So In conclusion, if you know someone who has a problem with drugs or alcohol, here are some references to provide them to get professional help. This concludes our PowerPoint for this week. Have a wonderful week.